And I think we're live. We're live?
It says it.
We're live. This is linuxinstall.net, episode number 108. And we are recording.
We're getting so old.
We are. We're very old. 108 episodes. Woo! Up on another mini milestone in, 2 more weeks? The numbers are going a lot quicker now that we do this weekly. As opposed
Rather than every 3 or 4 weeks like we did there for 6 months.
Yes. So what's everybody... Oh, whoops. Let's start off with who we are. My name is Brian Wagner. With me, as always, are two out of... Well, at least Joe. And Walt is here also. So
yay, also.
I'm out of phase for some reason. I don't know. Last week's episode still messing with my head. Like we haven't done a new episode in so long.
How were the stats from last week? Have you kept track of those, and how were they? I mean, have we had any feedback or gotten anything? Because we really haven't had a chance to talk about this offline. So I figure let's chat about it at the beginning of the show right now.
Nothing specific to us. I posted on Reddit. I posted a comment to somebody who was talking about his blog post and some other ones. Listens are definitely up, mostly I think because I was touting that we were talking to him, and he was getting a lot of press, so a lot of people retweeted, and I got the most retweets I think we've ever gotten.
Oh wow, that's cool.
The most retweets we've ever gotten for sure on Twitter. We got some likes on Facebook, which people normally don't like episodes. I don't know. They like our page, but they don't like individual episodes, and they actually click the like button on some episodes.
That's interesting, because I thought you kind of gave up with the whole Facebook page. I thought we said that in the one of the last episodes.
I gave up in so much as I'm just throwing stuff there, and if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. I'm not worrying about it. I'm not ignoring Facebook. I'm just not actively spending time trying to figure out what people want from it. Mostly because I don't think people are seeing it, and it's not because people don't want to help us out or don't want to like stuff. It's just
the Facebook junk.
Yeah. I mean, I have family posts, posts that I post about my family that I actually include family members in. I included my wife in a post. I specifically tagged her, and she still didn't see it.
Yep. And
I was like, no, you have to see it, because I tagged you. Why would you? What is the point in tagging you in this if you're not going to see it?
I think their algorithm on how things show up in the timeline is off just a tad, because Kim can post something and I'll go to check it 5 minutes later, and there's stuff from the past 24 hours that are 10 above what she just posted. And it's like,
that's because you have it in
this, and I'm like, what? Why is this?
You have it in top story mode, which is the default. And you used to be able to get it to default back to most recent, and you can't.
I hate Facebook. I don't care. That's interesting to know, but I'm not going to change it because
It doesn't matter. Even if you change it, it goes back to top stories.
Oh, really? Good. Okay, we'll see. Facebook sucks.
Why it sucks?
You heard it here first, people.
No. Pretty sure we're not first, but yeah, we're jumping on that bandwagon. That's for damn sure. No. So I only knew that we got liked because I have it set up to notify the podcast at linuxinstall.net email account. So if you want to email us, you can email us at podcast@linuxinstall.net also. That's where all the Facebook stuff comes into too. And it's all Gmail filtered and all that good stuff. And when I went into the account, I was like, oh, look at that. We got a bunch of favorites, which we never get individual favorites. We get favorites for the page, but we don't get favorites for the individual podcast. So it was kind of interesting. And like I said, a lot of tweets, retweets, a lot of favorites. So hopefully, Jeff's pretty happy. Hopefully it'll help sell his book when he gets his book out. But yeah, it was cool. A lot of people directly interacted with me to ask me what I thought, and I said, listen to the podcast, because pretty much he explained himself. So, let's move on. What's everybody been up to this week? Or, well, the last 2 weeks, because we really didn't do this last week, so.
Linux, man, Linux.
Yep.
Linux.
Just playing. One of the things I was playing around with, and I haven't played around with it too much, was a little distro called Tails. Something we were talking about at work. A couple of guys installed it on the thumb drives. If you're kind of going to play around with this, that would probably be the thing to do. It is a live distro. So when you boot it up, I threw it into VM just because I didn't want to trash one of my thumb drives real quick as I was sitting here. And I really didn't have a whole hell of a lot of time to play with it. So I just threw it into VM real quick and just booted it up. It boots up clean every time. Just like booting off a live disk would. When you throw it onto a thumb drive, though, if it's at least a 4 gig thumb drive, you can put it into, I believe it's called like a persistent mode. Let me get up the distro here. I think it's called persistent.
So it's like a persistent disk, so it'll keep writing back to the...
Exactly, which is kind of cool. Configure persistent volume. So you can do that. So that's kind of cool. When you boot up off the ISO, you can go right to the Tails installer, which is right off the menu, and you can basically do an upgrade, clone and an upgrade, and you can do a clone and an install. You can install it to an SD card or a USB stick to make it completely bootable. It's running... VMware saw it as Debian 6. So that's not the latest version of Debian. I think Debian's up to like 7 some.
Right.
I can't remember what the actual latest version of Debian was. But it saw it as Debian 6. I had the kernel up here earlier, and I can't remember what that. I didn't write it down. I can't remember what the kernel was that was running on this. But it looked like it's definitely a little bit newer. Definitely not latest and greatest. It does come with some software right off the bat. It has KeyPass installed, Pigeon, Claws Email, and then Iceweasel, which is the browser. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Tails, everything is supposed to be going through Tor. So basically, when you boot up, you're connected to the Tor network. And Iceweasel is a Tor basically related browser. I haven't played around with Iceweasel before, so I was a little newer playing around with that. One of the interesting things I noticed that it came with, and I actually went back to the Debian page to see what it defaulted to. For Office, it has OpenOffice instead of LibreOffice, which I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, I was just like, huh. I wonder what the reasoning was for that, because it looks like Debian has the page I was looking at said it was what was included with Debian, so I'm thinking Debian might include both. I haven't downloaded the latest version of Debian recently or installed a version of Debian recently, but it looked like they had both on there, so I don't know if that just meant that they had repositories or if the latest distro actually came with both Libre and OpenOffice. I didn't get a chance to play around, download the latest version of Debian to see, but I just thought it was interesting that was OpenOffice. From some of the guys that played around with this at work and from playing around with it the little bit I did, it seems pretty cool. One of the neat and interesting things you can do with it, when you're booting it up, you can have, it'll bring you to a little dialog window that has just continue or more options. If you click on more options and hit next, it basically opens up to a window where you can go through like a proxy server. You can set a password for root. You can set Windows mode, where it basically makes the screen look like Windows XP default. And it's freaking hilarious, because I did it the one time I booted it up, and it looks just like Windows XP. So nobody would know you are running a Linux distro. I mean, it has the green grass sitting there, it has the start button, and it literally looks like Windows XP. So if you're at a coffee shop or something, you really don't want people to know what you're doing, you can basically just make it look like Windows XP, and everybody will be laughing at you thinking you're the least secure person there, and you're probably the most secure.
Yeah. So, when you were playing with it, I've played with Tor a number of times, and my big problem with Tor is how slow it is.
And that's the nature of the beast when you come to something like this. I mean, back when I used to do some different things on the internet, I used to use a little program, like a VPN program called Steganos, which is actually still around. And it's basically just like a VPN proxy that lets you hop through different VPN proxy servers, constantly. And, it definitely slows down your surfing and what you're downloading. You will probably notice a difference. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I guess we're all just so used to our super fast internets lately, and the interwebs just being, blazing that, when you start using a utility like this, you do notice the hit that it gives you, but I still think it's workable.
Yeah, for a
For,
lot of
for
things
certain
you're gonna,
situations.
right. For a lot of the things you're going to use it for, you don't need to
Correct.
screen anyways. Checking corporate
Right.
email, logging into a config page, whatever it might be that isn't going to be like you're not going to be watching YouTube through the thing.
Yeah. Now it's funny because Leo's talked about Tor before, and everybody has always hinted around that, like the NSA or some of the, the FCC or some of the other people are maybe the ones behind the whole Tor network and everything, and how really secure and safe is it to use Tor, or is Tor really monitored more heavily than your unfiltered Tor stuff, the stuff that doesn't go through Tor. So take it for what it is. It works. It's cool. Give it a shot. Play around with it. It seems like it's pretty easy to be able to build a bootable thumb drive off of this. Like I says, if you want to make it a persistent drive, I think you need at least a 4 gig thumb drive to be able to do that. But give it a shot. See if you like it.
Cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. So, what have you been up to, Walt?
I've been the upgrade madness. The Ubuntu LTS 14.04 obviously was out 2 weeks ago, and I think I ended up with 8 machines that needed updated in one way or another. Let's see. So my main desktop I run Ubuntu on, and so I had upgraded that. My main laptop I had Kubuntu on, but I actually switched it to Ubuntu as well, just for more or less uniformity between the two machines. My netbook actually still runs Kubuntu. I upgraded that. Worked pretty good. At work, my Linux desktop, Kubuntu again, straight upgrade worked good. My rogue server at work, if you will, was still running the old 1204 LTS, so it got an upgrade to 14. Everything ported just fine. My buddy, I think a couple of shows ago, I had mentioned I converted a guy who had an old Dell 280 machine, so we updated him. And then my Sony Vaio P, my Fujitsu U820, and the Dell 2120 netbook all needed upgrades of various
flavors of Ubuntu.
Yes. So we did. Actually, probably more than 8 now that I recount. Math.
So did the upgrades all go clean for you? Did you run into any issues with any of those?
Yeah,
I mean, 'cause
everything was cool.
That's quite a range of hardware, we should say.
Oh yeah, it is. It was a pretty big range. I ran into 2 things that weren't problems, but they were just kind of interesting. I had on the Ubuntu machines, the earlier version had a Mac-like dock across the bottom. And with the new release, and I forget what they call it, but they now have the same, start menu, if you will, that Linux Mint uses. So it's got your favorites and all the applications blown out. And on the machines that I did a clean install, you got that new menu, but on anything I did an upgrade, you did not. And I thought that was just kind of different because I've never seen, I guess, a interface change so much to where you had that as an issue. But it ended up being, it's just a launch bar widget. So you remove the old bar and you add the new one, and then it's just like it would have been if you did it clean. It took like 4 seconds if you wanted to change it over. So it wasn't anything wrong. In fact, I think I might have chatted with Brian a little bit about that last week, either through IM or whatnot. And you more or less guessed it. If you already had a config file in your home directory, it just didn't mess with it. It upgraded all the packages like usual, but it didn't reconfigure your desktop on you.
Cool.
The other thing I ran into was actually on those the U820 and the Sony Vaio P run those bastard It's the Mali 400 graphics that never went anywhere. The proprietary code that there's only a little blob for, and the 3D, no 3D support, 2D support was just kind of getting usable when nobody cared anymore. The latest update, in earlier versions, I was able to play 480p video fairly well, and with the current update, something changed. I don't know if it's the codec or my cat behind me or whatever it is, but I wasn't actually able to play back the video in full screen. Still worked fine in windowed, but full screen is stunning.
I'm here. My goodness. Say hi, everybody.
There it is. So I was a little disappointed with that, but the honest truth is I don't use either of those machines anymore. They sit on the shelf. I was just more curious to see, how the latest OS would run on. I don't even know how many year old hardware those things are now anymore. Probably 6 or more. But still worked good. The one unit's actually touchscreen, and all the touch and everything worked fine. I didn't have to configure anything weird. Historically, that was always a problem. Trying to have it find everything. So yeah, I was pretty happy. I actually did a straight Ubuntu install on a VM just to see some of the new stuff in that. Specifically, I was never a fan of the way Unity would put the application menu bars across the top, similar like Mac did, because not all applications supported that. You'd open up LibreOffice and it would still be in the window, but you'd open up Terminal and it'd be across the top, and there just wasn't a lot of conformity. That's one of the things I guess they changed with this latest version, is you can turn that off and keep all the menus in the windows, which is kind of cool. Everything else, to me anyways, for what little exposure I've had, pretty much looked the same. As far as a VM went, it detected everything just fine. But I'm just not a big Unity fan, so that's why I don't run any of that.
Cool. I too have been playing with a little bit of the 14.4 stuff. I downloaded all of those ISOs and then promptly did absolutely nothing with them. Except for Dudebuntu, which I put into a VM just to see how it was, see what had changed and what looked different. It still looks pretty close to the same. Now this is a clean install, and I'm not getting the dock you're talking about.
No, the dock was in the 13.10 and prior.
Right. So if I do 14.4, it's not there?
Correct.
Oh, all right. But I get some weird graphics issues in the VM, which is unusual. I've never seen that before. So, like, my date isn't looking right, and the button to click on to pull up the applications doesn't look right. Otherwise, everything I've done with it's fine. It works. It's, Dudebuntu and Linux. And like Walt, I haven't come across anything that went, ooh, wow, that's totally different. It just kind of works. It's just kind of there.
I was reading, just real quick, what VM did you run it in? VirtualBox?
No, this is on KVM.
Oh, KVM, okay. There was I was reading with VMware. You needed to be on the latest version with the latest version of the tools. Otherwise, you did run into some graphical issues. You were stuck at 640 by 480, and there was some tearing and some other things. And the long and short of it is you just had to upgrade to the latest of everything, and then it worked.
Yeah, when I pulled the VM up right before the podcast, I noticed that there is there's updates that need to be done. So that might be the updates that are coming.
Yeah.
I don't know yet, but it's more annoying than anything else. It's not really stopping me from doing anything. It's just they look ugly.
Right. And as far as a host is concerned, I was kind of disappointed. VirtualBox still hasn't had official support, updated yet for it. Although you can run the earlier repos and it runs just fine, but normally they're updated the day after, and for whatever reason it's 2 weeks and still nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Because I'm trying to think if it detected on my Windows box. I don't remember. Because I did it on that box. On that too. I copied the VM, or I made another VM. But the other thing that, what else have you been doing, Walt? Anything else?
There was something else, but it escapes me. So.
Okay, because the other thing that I did was I posted this on Google Plus. If anybody was looking at the Google Plus page, and I took part in the Linux Showdown #7 day 1 exercise yesterday.
Nice.
And I also
Oh.
went back and did a redo, which the redos are, if you want to practice and see what it's like to do one, the redos are the previous, well, at least 5 and 6. I didn't look to see if 4 was out there. At least the 5 and 6 challenges are all out there, and you can go out and kick up quick VMs to run through these tests, and then they'll score the tests. So I did the first one. I have to say I didn't follow instructions.
You?
And the instructions were out of order. So if I'd read all the instructions first and then did it, I would have been okay. I followed the instructions. I just was doing each instruction instead of reading all the instructions and then exercising and doing the exercise. I just did the instructions as they were written. And in doing one of the tasks, I made it completely impossible to do one of the later tasks. So, you'll have that. So it looked like I did really horribly. And I spent a whole bunch of time. Like, I was really done in about 15 minutes. You have an hour to do this particular one. There are different times depending on what all they're asking you to do. Times seem a little short to me on the ones that I've done so far, unless you're like me or Joe or Walt, where you do it on a regular basis. You're going to be tight on time, so don't bottle. Because even the redo that I did, which I didn't have any problems with, was tight. It was very tight. I was typing pretty fast to try to read, comprehend, and since I'd already made the mistake on the one in the current contest, I made sure to go back and read all of the instructions first and then execute. It's got the same auto-grading problem I've seen with most other systems like this I've used. I'm not going to pick on it too bad. It can't account for all the different ways you could do something. Or it doesn't seem to account for all the different ways you could do something. And so they've asked some very specific things, and there's 2 or 3 different ways you could do that. The way I did it wasn't the way they were expecting it to be done, I guess, and that's my assumption. Because the one that I did a third one, and I absolutely cheated, read through what you were supposed to do, followed their instructions, and I still only got a 75%. So I'm a little confused since I followed your instructions and did them to the T, you're still not catching that I did everything. So it was a little on the frustrating side, but not bad. The cool thing was I don't know how this company got its start, but TrueAbility is trying to make themselves a way for people, when you're looking for talent, for Linux talent, coming up with a way to test and show people's abilities. Which I was like, okay, well, these tests are kind of off, and I did things differently because I know that they can be done differently, and it's the way I like to do it, and it wasn't the way they were expecting me to do it. So I missed some things. Or according to them, I missed some things. I didn't. It worked exactly how they said they wanted it to work, but I didn't do it the way they wanted it to be done, so they didn't see my changes. But after I got done, and I didn't check, I don't think I could do it on the current one, but when I went back and did the redo, it actually let me see more or less what I think you would see if you were trying to hire based on this, right? So you could click on it and play back everything that I did, and it would show you all the things that I did, where I went, what I tried, what worked, what didn't work, and all that stuff.
So like
I
a
was
full session record?
Yeah, it's a full session record. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, if I go back to when I've had to do interviews and stuff like that, and technical interviews, this would be really cool. So if I have technically interviewed you over the phone, and I have a general idea of what I think you should be able to do, I could send you to this and see if I'm right, basically, without having to do another interview with you.
Yeah, so if step number 1 was Google, what is fill in the blank. Probably not someone you want.
But well, the problem is you can only see what they're typing into the terminal. You can't see what they're doing on their computer. But that's okay. By keeping the really short timeline, you're cutting down how much Googling you can really do. Like True. I spent 45 minutes Googling trying to figure out how to get myself out of the hole I created. And I did, but for some reason I have never been a huge user of postfix, and there was some other step I missed when I was doing something with postfix to try to fix the problem. That would have fixed the problem. Because I had recovered everything that I deleted and all this other stuff, but I couldn't, it didn't have the specifics. And that was just when I was an email admin on a Linux system, SendMail was the only thing that existed. So I could do it in SendMail. I can't do it in Postfix because I don't run mail servers anymore, and I don't want people to run mail servers when I help them. I always convince them to use something like Google Mail, or Rackspace has a mail system. There's a couple other ones out there that you can do it so cheaply, and they have so much better spam filter than you can set up at home. Let them have it. And I don't really want the hassle, so I don't. But it would have been cool when we were doing a lot of interviewing in the past. And some of my jobs in the past, you know, especially when I was a lead, I was interviewing a lot of people. And it would have been cool to build some scenarios, get the team to agree that the scenarios are valid, have them run through it and make sure that we're looking for all the right things, and then put it out to prospective people we might hire and see how they do on that. And I think it would have been really cool to be able to watch what they were doing. So how were they thinking about it? Did they know how to use man? Did they know where to go for the file? Were they in the right spot? They were looking at the files, but they couldn't figure out how to edit them right? Was it, so was it just that they didn't know that particular software, or did they not even know anything? Because if they all of a sudden hypertype, you just see a block of text just appear more or less, they pasted. Or at least I could tell where I pasted, because I had to paste the name in the one thing. I had to paste names and stuff in there. So you could see it, just like the word would just appear versus watching every character appear. So I was like, okay, so I could tell, or would be able to tell that. Plus it would have been scored. I was like, that's actually a pretty cool system. I don't know what it costs, because I didn't really look that deeply into it, but I know they offer that as a service for companies. So if your company is looking to hire people and you guys want to do some filtering and you want to knock some people out with something like this, it's a good idea, but don't make it your final decision, because some people just stress out. Some people don't read all the instructions first. So I was one of my feedbacks to them is going to be, you should give me the ability to click a reset button at any point and let me just start over, because
sometimes
Prices.
That's the best way.
Prices: $375 for 30 days. One job posting, unlimited candidate screening, screen all candidate from all job boards like Dice, Monster, LinkedIn, etc. And then the prices go up from there: 30, 60, 90 days.
So if you figure most interviews are an hour, there's at least 2 people from your team on there at 75 apiece. That's 150 for every hour. So if you could knock 2 or 3 people out of every round, it'd pay for itself. Wouldn't be that far off. And you'd be sure you got a better candidate.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You wouldn't have to do the hire onboard fire thing. So.
Yeah. The fact you can just, like you said, you can watch what they did. Like you said, I mean, maybe they just weren't familiar with a particular tool, but you can see that they tried to use a different one. So they know theory. They just need to learn the new syntax or the new tool. Versus, like you said, someone who's just Google pasting a bunch of stuff, so they didn't really know anything there.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, and if you're out there and you want to just test your skills and see how you do, I will tell you there were very few people, as of last night, I want to say only like 10 people had actually completed it with a 100% score. And it dropped off pretty quickly from there. Because I was at 83. With my whopping 29% success rate.
For today, there's 52 people with 100%.
Okay. Today's must be
On
easier.
day 2, day 1 there was only 9 people with 100%.
Right. So now that I know what I did wrong in the first one, I'll probably have 100% too. Some of the ones, if you go back and do the other ones, if you're just learning how to do Linux, it's actually probably a pretty good exercise to go back and do some of those, just to test yourself so you can see what you need to learn. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you a real detailed answer on what you did wrong. That's kind of another thing. I wish they would say you passed this step, failed this step, whatever. That kind of stuff. Or tell you what part of the step. Because they know. Just report back to me what I did wrong. So I know what I have to learn for next time. But I think you guys should both go try it. It's cool.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
Yeah.
Come on, it's a game in a different style. You two both like the game. This is a whole different style game.
Do I get gold or frankincense?
You can win.
Yeah, where's the Uber loot?
First prize is a Amazon Fire. There's a $250 gift card for DigitalOcean. There's I can't remember what else is on there. There's some other stuff. Kind of geeky prizes. But, you know, it's not bad.
We'll see.
That's a no. All right. So, do you guys have anything else for this week?
Nope.
All right. Before we totally wrap up, we actually got a couple months ago, and I apologize to Dudebuntu on Stitcher for not noticing and paying closer attention. Stitcher unfortunately doesn't give us a heads up that there's actually a review out there. But we got a 4 out of 5 star review, and he said that he likes the show a lot. Linux just makes it more interesting. So keep up the great show. So thank you very much, Dudebuntu.
Dudebuntu.
If you want to leave us a review, you can definitely do that on Stitcher, if that's where you're listening to us. We have 242 people who have us in a playlist on Stitcher.
Nice.
If all 242 would love to go out and give us a 4 or 5 star review, prefer the 5 stars, but, you know, I'm not going to be picky. Please do so. Let us know that you like the show. It's kind of the only thing we do. We don't really get paid. We don't do any advertising. So your feedback is kind of what keeps us going.
Wait, we don't get paid?
No. No. Did you not notice that the check never came?
I figured because my address changed.
Nope.
Yes. Well, you trust us. You know what? It's still in the mail. Don't worry about it.
It'll get there eventually.
Yep. It'll catch up with you.
If you're listening to us on iTunes, please go in and give us a 5-star review there. That would be awesome. Also, if you want to just help us out, whenever we tweet out the stuff, we tweet it out on @LinuxInstall on Twitter. So if you would favorite it, retweet it, all that good stuff, that helps us out a lot. Gets a lot more people to see us. You can also do the same thing. We have a Google Plus community where we post stuff. So if you go out there and share the Google Plus posts, that's great too. If you want to check out what else we're doing, Walt's doing crazy cool stuff with small computers a lot over at Jevack.com. I haven't seen what you were posting lately.
I had the Chromebook up there about a week or two ago. I got 2 or 3 updates. They're almost written. I needed to get some pictures. The weather got nice. I've been outside. That's the honest truth.
And Joe's over at What I'm Playing Now. What are you guys up to this week over there? Joe?
Just a normal week for us. We usually do a Retro Wednesday show where we sit down and play some old retro games, either PC or old console games on the PC. Saturday we usually do our live streaming show where we stream maybe for the afternoon, or this past Saturday I just streamed for about an hour or so doing a little Elder Scrolls Online. And then the podcast is on Monday nights, usually around 8 o'clock or so.
Cool. And my other podcast that I'm doing right now is DevOps Mastery over at DevOpsMastery.com. I do a blog and another podcast, and then the podcast is really just the blog post in audio form with a little bit of extra content because I have my buddy Jason who plays foil and makes sure that I don't say things over too many people's heads. At least he tries to keep me not saying things over people's heads. And our latest podcast that we were talking about and our latest write-up over there was not to start automating until you've documented it. So don't try to automate something you don't have a process written up for, because you're going to miss stuff. And it's going to take you a lot longer to... It will take you a lot longer to automate it if you don't have it written down, if you don't know what your steps are. Plus, then you got a lot more people that have to test it. It just takes longer all around. But if you read the post, it'll explain to you a little better in detail. And it'll talk about what I think is too much documentation versus not enough. Because I'm not saying it's got to be too detailed, but it's got to be something. But you have to read to find out, or listen to find out. Either one. And I think that's it for this week. Joe, what should everybody go do?
Go install some Linux. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.